This video provides brief information about the artillery used by the Italian army in combat during World War I. The Obice da 149-12 was an Italian heavy howitzer developed in the early 20th century, primarily used during World War I and, to a lesser extent, World War II. This artillery piece was designed to provide powerful indirect fire support for Italian infantry and was notable for its large caliber and relatively long range for its time. The designation 149-12 indicates the gun's caliber of 149 mm and a barrel length of 12 calibers, reflecting its design as a short-barreled, high-trajectory weapon suitable for siege and counter-battery operations. The Obice da 149-12 was a relatively heavy and cumbersome artillery piece, typically requiring a team of horses or motorized traction to transport it into position. Its carriage was designed to allow limited mobility, and the gun could be disassembled into multiple loads for easier movement across rough terrain. Once emplaced, it was capable of delivering highly destructive firepower against fortified positions, trenches, and concentrated enemy formations. Its high explosive shells were effective in demolishing obstacles and creating defensive breaches, making it a valuable tool in siege warfare and prolonged engagements. In terms of technical specifications, the Obice da 149-12 had a caliber of 149 mm with a barrel length of 12 calibers, giving it a relatively low muzzle velocity compared to longer-barreled guns, but allowing for a steep firing arc. This design enabled the artillery to fire shells over obstacles and into enemy fortifications. The gun fired shells weighing approximately 40 to 45 kilograms, depending on the type of ammunition used, and had a maximum firing range of around 7,500 meters. The rate of fire was relatively slow, typically one round every 2 to 3 minutes, due to the size of the ammunition and the manual loading process. The carriage design included a box trail or fixed base, which allowed limited traverse and elevation adjustments, making the gun suitable primarily for planned bombardments rather than rapid, mobile engagements. The Obice da 149-12 played a significant role in Italian artillery doctrine during World War I, providing the army with a reliable and powerful weapon for siege operations and breaking enemy defensive lines. Its large caliber and high explosive capability made it particularly effective in static warfare conditions, where firepower was prioritized over mobility. Although somewhat outdated by the time of World War II, it remained in service in secondary roles and in reserve units, demonstrating the durability and continued relevance of its design. The gun was eventually supplemented and replaced by more modern artillery pieces with higher mobility, faster rates of fire, and longer ranges, but it remains a notable example of early 20th century heavy artillery engineering. In conclusion, the Obice da 149-12 was a formidable heavy howitzer characterized by its 149 mm caliber, 12 caliber barrel, high explosive firepower, and use in siege and defensive operations. Its design emphasized destructive capability over mobility, making it a cornerstone of Italian artillery during World War I and a historically significant artillery piece that exemplifies the technological and tactical approaches of its era. The Obice da 117 was a light field howitzer widely used by the Royal Italian Army during the First World War and later conflicts. It entered service in 1914 and was designed primarily to support infantry operations in mountainous and difficult terrain, a requirement that was especially important on the Alpine front against Austria-Hungary. The design was influenced by contemporary European artillery concepts, particularly those associated with the French Schneider Company, and it reflected the need for a reliable, compact, and easily transportable artillery system suitable for harsh conditions. The main role of the Obice da 117 was indirect fire support, targeting enemy trenches, fortified positions, artillery emplacements, and troop concentrations. The howitzer had a caliber of 100 mm, and its barrel length was 17 calibers, which is the origin of the designation 117. The relatively short barrel allowed the weapon to fire at high angles of elevation, making it highly effective against concealed or defilated targets, especially in mountainous areas where direct fire was often impractical. From a technical standpoint, the Obice da 117 was equipped with a steel barrel and a hydro-pneumatic recoil system. This recoil mechanism absorbed the backward force generated during firing, improved stability, and allowed the gun to return quickly to its firing position, thus increasing the practical rate of fire. The howitzer was mounted on a robust carriage with wooden wheels, which could be drawn by horses or broken down into transportable loads for movement along narrow mountain paths. This transport flexibility was one of the weapon's greatest advantages in alpine warfare. In terms of performance, the Obice da 117 had a maximum firing range of approximately 9 to 10 kilometers, which was considered adequate for a light howitzer of its era. It fired separate loading ammunition, most commonly high explosive shells weighing around 14 to 15 kilograms. These shells were effective against infantry, field fortifications, and lightly protected targets. In addition to high explosive rounds, smoke and other specialized ammunition types were also available, enhancing its tactical versatility on the battlefield. The combat service of the Obice da 117 did not end with the First World War. Due to its solid construction and dependable performance, the weapon remained in service for many years and underwent several modifications and upgrades. Improved variants were adapted for motorized towing and fitted with updated carriages, which increased mobility and extended their operational lifespan. As a result, the howitzer was still in use by Italian forces during the early stages of the Second World War, particularly in secondary theaters and defensive roles. In conclusion, the Obice da 117 represented a well-balanced and effective light field howitzer of the early 20th century. Its combination of adequate range, powerful high-explosive ammunition, high-angle fire capability, and excellent mobility in difficult terrain made it a valuable asset for the Italian army. Especially in mountain warfare, this howitzer played a significant role in providing reliable and sustained artillery support, and it remains an important example of Italy's First World War artillery development. The Cannone da 75-27 Modello 11 was an Italian field artillery gun introduced in the early 20th century and represented a significant step forward in artillery design at the time. Developed in 1911 and officially adopted by the Royal Italian Army Regia Esercito in 1912, this artillery piece was based on a design by the French artillery engineer Colonel Joseph Albert Deporte. It was intended to provide mobile, accurate, and reliable fire support for infantry formations and remained in service for several decades, spanning both the First and Second World Wars. The designation 75-27 follows the Italian artillery naming system, where 75 refers to the caliber of the gun in millimeters, and 27 indicates the barrel length expressed in calibers. The term Modello 11 denotes the year of adoption, 1911. The gun was chambered for 75 by 185 mm ammunition and fired a projectile weighing approximately 6.3 kilograms, making it effective against enemy infantry, field fortifications, and light defensive positions. One of the most distinctive features of the Cannone da 75-27 Modello 11 was its advanced carriage design. It was one of the earliest field guns to use a split-trail carriage, which allowed a significantly wider traverse compared to traditional single-trail designs. This gave the gun improved flexibility on the battlefield, particularly in mountainous and uneven terrain, which was highly relevant for Italian military doctrine. The gun also featured an unusual dual recoil system, in which the barrel recoil mechanism was separated from a secondary recoil system mounted beneath the gun. While innovative, this system was mechanically complex and later abandoned in favor of simpler designs. In terms of technical characteristics, the Cannone da 7527 Modello 11 had a barrel length of approximately 2.13 meters. The gun weighed around 1,015 kilograms in firing position and about 1,075 kilograms in transport configuration. It had an elevation range from approximately -15 degrees to +65 degrees, allowing both direct and indirect fire. The horizontal traverse was roughly 52 degrees, which was excellent for its time. The muzzle velocity ranged between 500 and 510 meters per second, and the maximum firing range reached approximately 10,200 meters. The practical rate of fire was about 4 to 6 rounds per minute under combat conditions. The Cannone da 7527 Modello 11 saw extensive service during the First World War, particularly on the Italian front, where it was widely used by standard infantry units and specialized mountain troops such as the Alpini. After the war, many guns were modernized with metal wheels and pneumatic tires to allow motorized towing. During the Second World War, the gun was still in widespread use by Italian forces, despite being technologically outdated compared to newer artillery systems. After Italy's armistice in 1943, captured examples were used by German forces under the designation 7.5 cm Feldkanone 244I. Some guns were also exported, notably to Finland, where they were known as the 75K11. In conclusion, the Cannone da 7527 Modello 11 was a technically innovative and historically important artillery piece. Although its complex recoil system limited its long-term influence on artillery design, its mobility, firepower, and long service life made it a key component of Italian artillery for more than 3 decades. The gun stands as a representative example of early 20th century artillery development and the transitional period between pre-war and modern artillery technology. The Cannone da 149-35 was an Italian heavy artillery piece developed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It was primarily designed as a long-range siege and coastal gun, reflecting the Italian Army's need for powerful artillery capable of both fortress defense and offensive operations during the early 20th century, including World War I. The designation 149-35 refers to the caliber and barrel length, 149 mm caliber with a barrel length of 35 calibers, which translates to a barrel roughly 5.215 meters long. This gun was designed to deliver high explosive shells over considerable distances, providing Italian forces with the ability to engage enemy fortifications, artillery positions, and troop concentrations from a safe range. In terms of construction, the Cannone da 149-35 was a built-up gun with a steel barrel reinforced with multiple layers to withstand high pressures generated by the propellant charge. It used a horizontal sliding wedge breech mechanism, which allowed for relatively rapid loading for a gun of its size and provided a reliable seal to prevent gas escape during firing. The gun could fire a variety of ammunition types, including high explosive shells, or HE shells, armor-piercing shells for use against fortifications, and shrapnel rounds for anti-personnel purposes. The carriage design was typically a box trail or fixed mount for fortress and coastal installations, although some versions were adapted for field use on wheeled carriages. This allowed the gun to be deployed in static defensive positions or moved short distances to support infantry offensives. The recoil system consisted of a hydro spring mechanism, which absorbed the recoil energy and returned the barrel to its original firing position, enhancing accuracy and allowing a faster rate of fire compared to older rigid-mounted artillery. The technical characteristics of the Cannone da 149-35 included a caliber of 149 mm, a barrel length of 35 calibers, and a muzzle velocity of approximately 650 to 700 meters per second, depending on the projectile and charge used. The The maximum firing range reached up to 14 to 15 kilometers, which was considerable for its time, making it suitable for long-range bombardment and counter-battery operations. The rate of fire was limited by manual loading procedures to around 2 rounds per minute, typical for heavy artillery of the period. The weight of the gun, including carriage, was substantial, generally exceeding 9,000 kilograms, which meant that transportation required careful planning, often involving horse teams or early motorized tractors for mobility. During World War I, the Cannone da 149-35 saw extensive service on the Italian front, particularly in the mountainous regions of the Alps and along entrenched battle lines. Its ability to deliver sustained, accurate fire made it an important asset for both offensive operations and the defense of fortified positions. After World War I, the gun remained in Italian service for some years, though advancements in artillery design and the emergence of more mobile and higher velocity guns gradually rendered it less effective compared to newer models. Despite this, it exemplified the transition from 19th-century fortress artillery to more modern long-range field artillery, capable of both siege and coastal defense roles. In summary, the Cannone da 149-35 was a reliable and powerful heavy gun that combined substantial firepower, long-range capability, and relatively advanced recoil and breech systems for its era. It played a significant role in Italian military operations during the early 20th century, illustrating both the strengths and limitations of pre-World War I artillery technology. Its design reflected Italy's strategic need for versatile heavy artillery capable of serving both in static defenses and in support of mobile operations when circumstances allowed. The Cannone da 305-17 was a large-caliber artillery gun developed by Italy and primarily used during the First World War. Its designation reflects its specifications, a 305mm caliber with a barrel length of 17 calibers. This gun was deployed mainly on Italy's major warships and in coastal defense batteries, where it played a critical role in both naval engagements and shore bombardments. The Cannone da 305-17 was designed to provide long-range firepower, capable of striking enemy vessels as well as fortified coastal positions. The gun's construction followed the standard naval artillery design of the early 20th century, with a steel barrel reinforced for durability and a screw-type breech mechanism. It was developed between 1908 and 1910 and entered service in 1911. The primary role of the Cannone da 305-17 was to deliver heavy, long-range projectiles accurately against enemy ships and coastal targets, making it a central component of Italians' naval firepower. In terms of technical characteristics, the Cannone da 305-17 had a caliber of 305mm and a barrel length of approximately 5.2 meters, equivalent to 17 calibers. The overall weight of the gun varied depending on the mount, but it typically weighed around 40 tons. It fired shells with a muzzle velocity of approximately 700 to 740 meters per second, and its maximum range reached between 23 and 25 kilometers. The gun could fire shells weighing between 452 and 470 kilograms, including high explosive, shrapnel, and specialized heavy projectiles. The operation of the Cannone da 305-17 required a large crew, as the loading and aiming process was largely manual, although some models incorporated semi-automatic features. Its recoil system was hydraulic, which helped maintain accuracy during repeated firing. The gun could be mounted on various platforms. On naval ships, it was fitted on armored turrets or casements, while in coastal batteries, it was placed on reinforced concrete or steel structures. Historically, the Cannone 305-17 served as a cornerstone of Italian naval and coastal defense strategy. During the First World War and subsequent years, it was used to strengthen coastal fortifications and to engage enemy vessels at long distances. Its main advantages were its heavy firepower and extended range, while its primary limitations were its significant weight and the need for a large crew, which made mobility difficult. In conclusion, the Cannone da 305-17 was one of Italy's most important heavy-caliber guns during the early 20th century.
Its technical capabilities, robust construction, and battlefield effectiveness secured its place as a key weapon in both naval and coastal artillery, providing long-range, powerful strikes that were crucial for Italy's military strategy during the First World War.
The Mortier de 58mm Type II was a French light trench mortar developed and widely used during World War I, designed to provide infantry units with mobile, short-range, indirect fire support. It was a refinement of the earlier Mortier de 58mm Type I, with improvements aimed at increasing stability, accuracy, and ease of handling in trench warfare conditions. Its design reflected the French military's recognition of the need for a light, portable mortar capable of lobbing explosive shells into enemy trenches and fortifications where traditional artillery could not reach effectively. The Type II mortar featured a relatively simple and robust construction, consisting of a smoothbore steel barrel mounted on a tripod base that allowed for both elevation and traverse adjustments. The barrel was relatively short, which limited the range, but made it easy to transport and set up quickly in forward positions. The mortar fired fin-stabilized explosive bombs weighing approximately 3 kilograms, with an effective range of around 200 to 500 meters, depending on the charge used. This range allowed infantry units to engage targets behind cover or in trenches without exposing themselves to direct enemy fire. The mortar's firing mechanism relied on a percussion system. The bomb was dropped down the barrel, striking a fixed firing pin at the base, which ignited the propellant charge, launching the projectile in a high arcing trajectory. In terms of performance, the Mortier de 58mm Type II was appreciated for its portability and ease of use. A crew of 2 to 3 men could quickly move the weapon, set it up, and fire in rapid succession. Its rate of fire reached up to 20 rounds per minute in optimal conditions, though in practice it was often lower due to the need for careful aiming and loading. The shells were highly effective against enemy personnel, light fortifications, and barbed wire, providing crucial support during offensive operations and trench raids. The mortar's relatively light weight, approximately 60 to 65 kilograms in total, including the barrel and tripod, allowed it to be disassembled and transported by pack animals or carried short distances by infantry, making it a flexible weapon in the dynamic and constrained environment of trench warfare. The Mortier de 58mm Type II represented a significant improvement over earlier designs, incorporating adjustments to the baseplate and barrel attachment that reduced recoil and improved accuracy. It remained in service with French forces throughout World War I and influenced subsequent designs of light infantry mortars. Its combination of portability, simplicity, and effective explosive power made it a key component of French infantry tactics, providing a mobile solution for delivering indirect fire support directly to the front lines.